The tunnels had been silent for 3 cycles now. Vrax pressed his scaled back against the cold rock wall and tried to remember what sunlight looked like. Beside him, Solace breathed in short, careful bursts to save oxygen. Taven sat with his wings wrapped tight around his body, and little Rill had stopped crying 2 days ago. That worried Vrax most of all. They were dragons, but young ones. Vrax had barely 16 seasons, hardly old enough to leave his nest. The consortium did not care about that. They needed workers small enough to fit in narrow mining shafts, and dragon younglings were perfect. Cheap, too, since most families were desperate enough to sign the contracts without reading them. The collapse happened fast. One moment Vrax was chipping at a mineral vein, the next the ceiling came down in chunks. Their supervisor fled immediately, sealing the emergency doors behind him. Standard procedure, the company called it. Acceptable losses. That was 3 cycles ago. "I hear something," Rill whispered. Her voice sounded raw and small in the darkness. Vrax listened. Nothing but the usual creaks and settling of damaged supports. "It is just the rock shifting. Try to rest." "No, I really hear something, like footsteps." Solace lifted his head. "She is right. Something is moving in the main shaft." They all froze. The emergency rations had run out yesterday. They had been melting ice from the walls to drink, but even that was getting harder to find. If someone was coming, it meant one of 2 things. Either salvage crews picking through the wreckage, or consortium security making sure no one survived to file complaints. Neither option was good. A light appeared in the distance. Not the harsh white beams of corporate equipment, but something softer. Yellow, like flame, but steadier. It bobbed as it moved closer, illuminating the destroyed tunnel bit by bit. "Hide," Vrax hissed. He pulled Rill behind a fallen support beam. Solace and Taven pressed themselves into a crack in the wall. The light grew brighter. Footsteps echoed off stone, definitely getting closer. Heavy boots, the kind station workers wore, probably salvage then. "Hello," a voice called out. Female, speaking standard, but with an accent Vrax did not recognize. "Is anyone alive down here?" None of them answered. Vrax held Rill tighter as she trembled against him. "My name is Carries Wade. I'm a rescue specialist." Vrax. "Nest Mother hired me to find her son. If you can hear me, please respond. I am not with the consortium." Vrax's heart hammered in his chest. His mother had sent someone, but that made no sense. She had nothing left to sell, nothing left to trade. The contract had taken everything. The light rounded a corner, and suddenly a human stood before them. She was shorter than Vrax expected, built solid like miners were, with dark skin and hair pulled back in a practical knot. Her clothes were worn but clean, covered in pockets and tool loops. The light came from a lamp mounted on her shoulder. She spotted them immediately. Her eyes went wide, then soft. "Oh, thank the stars, you are alive." Nobody moved. Carrie set down her pack slowly and held up both hands. "I know you are scared. I know humans have a reputation and not all of it is good, but I promise I am here to help. Your mother sent me Vrax. She sold her nest stone to hire me." Vrax felt his throat tighten. The nest stone was sacred. It was the only thing his mother had left from her own mother. If she sold it, she truly had nothing. He stepped out from behind the beam, pulling Rill with him. "You are really here to rescue us." Carrie smiled, and something about it made Vrax want to trust her. "Yes, all of you. What are your names?" "I am Vrax, this is Rill. Those 2 are Solace and Taven." "4 of you?" Carries looked around at the collapsed tunnel, at the sealed doors, at the precarious supports barely holding the ceiling up. Her smile faded. "Okay, this is going to be complicated." She walked over and sat down cross-legged in the rubble, right there in the middle of the disaster zone, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Then she reached into her pack and pulled out ration bars. The good kind, not the compressed nutrition blocks the consortium handed out. "First things first, when did you last eat?" Rill made a small noise in her throat. Carries immediately handed her 2 bars. "Eat slowly or you will get sick. Taven, Solace, come get some food. We have planning to do and you all need energy." They crept forward like they expected a trap. But Carries just kept handing out rations until everyone had some, including herself. She took a small bite of hers while they devoured theirs. "Here is the situation," Carries said calmly. "The main shaft collapsed completely. The emergency exit is blocked by a cave-in. I checked both before I came down here. There is only one way out, and it is going to be dangerous." "What way?" Solace asked through a mouthful of ration bar. "There is a flooded tunnel 2 levels down. My ship is docked on the other side. If we can get through the water, we can get to safety." Vraxt felt his stomach drop. "Dragons cannot swim, we sink." "I know," Carries met his eyes steadily. "That is why I brought diving equipment. I will pull each of you through personally. It will be cold and scary, but I will not let you drown, I promise." Rill's voice was barely a whisper. "Why would you do that for us? You do not know us." Carries was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that Vraxt would remember for the rest of his life. "On Earth we have a saying, you do not leave anyone behind, especially not kids. I came here for Vraxt, yes. But now that I have found all four of you are coming home with me. That is not negotiable." For the first time in 3 cycles, Vraxt felt something other than fear. It felt like hope, strange and fragile in the darkness. This human, this stranger, was promising something no one had ever promised them before. Safety, protection, a way out. Carries stood and brushed dust off her pants. "Finish eating, drink some water, then we start planning our escape. I did not come all this way to fail now." In the lamplight, surrounded by destruction, 4 young dragons sat with a human who had just walked into their nightmare and called it solvable. The mine was still dark. The danger was still real. But for the first time since the collapse, they were not alone anymore. Carries worked through the night while the dragons rested. She set up portable lights that cast steady white beams across the collapsed tunnel, turning the tomb into something that felt almost like a workspace. Vraxt watched her move from point to point, testing supports, measuring distances, taking notes on a battered datapad. She did not stop, not to rest, not to complain, not even to sit down for more than a minute at a time. Just steady, methodical work like she had done this 1,000 times before. Maybe she had. "Does your mother know you are safe?" Solace asked quietly. He had woken an hour ago and joined Vraxt in watching the human work. "I do not know how to contact her. The communication array was in the section that collapsed first." "Carries will figure it out. She seems like the kind who figures things out." Vraxt nodded. He wanted to believe that, needed to believe it. Carries noticed they were awake and walked over with her datapad. "Good, you are up. I need Solace's help with something. You have mining engineering training, right?" Solace blinked in surprise. "How did you know that?" "Your file. I pulled everyone's records before I came down. Figured it might be useful." She crouched beside them and pulled up a schematic on her screen. "Look at this section here. Can you tell me if these supports will hold if we shift weight to the eastern passage?" Solace studied the diagram carefully. His eyes moved over the lines and measurements, and Vraxt saw his friend's mind working through the problem. "No, the eastern passage has water damage. See these stress fractures. If you put any weight there, the whole thing comes down." "That is what I thought too. So we need to reinforce before we move. Can you help me identify which beams are critical?" "Yes, I can do that." Carries smiled and handed him the datapad. "You just became my assistant engineer. Welcome to the team." For the next few hours, they worked together. Carries would point out a section, Solace would analyze it, and they would decide together what needed to be done. Vraxt had never seen an adult ask a dragon youngling for advice before. Usually, adults just gave orders and expected obedience. Taven woke next, then Rill. Carries immediately put them to work too. Taven helped carry equipment, his strong wings making him perfect for reaching high places. Rill sorted through supplies and kept inventory. Everyone had a job, everyone mattered. They shared another meal at what Carries called midday, though time meant nothing in the eternal darkness of the mine. She divided her rations exactly equally, taking no more for herself than she gave the dragons. "Tell us about Earth," Rill said suddenly. "Is it really a death world?" Carries laughed. "That depends on who you ask. To most species, yes. Our gravity is high, our weather is extreme, and our biology is aggressive. But to us, it is just home." "Are all humans like you?" "Like me how?" "Brave, willing to go into dangerous places for strangers." Carries was quiet for a moment. She took a sip of water and stared at the tunnel wall. "My parents were miners, deep core extraction on a colony world called Haven's Gate. I was 14 when the supports failed in their section. The company sealed the tunnels and declared it an acceptable loss, just like they did here." The dragons went silent. "I was off-world at school when it happened. By the time I got back, the rescue window had closed. Company policy said it was too dangerous to attempt recovery. So I learned everything I could about rescue operations. Spent 10 years training, studying, practicing, and now I go into places where companies say it is too dangerous. I find people they left behind." "Did you ever find your parents?" Vraxt asked softly. "No, I was too late for them, but I have found 237 other people. Miners, engineers, explorers, kids, 237 lives that corporations wrote off as acceptable losses." She looked at each of them in turn. "You are 238 through 241. Rill moved closer and leaned against Carrie's side. The human put an arm around the small dragon without hesitation, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "We are sorry about your parents," Rill whispered. "Me too, little one, me too." They sat like that for a while, the 5 of them in the circle of light, surrounded by darkness and danger but somehow feeling safe anyway. Then Carrie straightened and checked her chronometer. "Okay, team, time to finish preparations. We move out in 6 hours. That gives us time to secure the route and rest before the dive." "What do we need to do?" Taven asked. "Solace and I will stabilize the passage to the flooded section. Vraxt, I need you to help me organize the diving equipment. Taven, those wings of yours are going to help us check the upper supports for any weakness. Rill, you keep monitoring our supplies and let me know if we are running low on anything critical." They scattered to their tasks, moving with purpose now instead of despair. Vraxt worked beside Carries, learning how the diving harnesses worked, how the oxygen tanks connected, how the tether system would keep them linked together during the underwater passage. "I am scared," he admitted. "Good, fear keeps you careful. It is panic that gets people killed." She showed him how to check the seals on a breather mask. "You trust me, Vraxt?" "Yes." "Then hold on to that. When we are in the water and everything is dark and cold, remember that I have done this before. I will not let you drown. I will not let any of you drown. That is my promise to your mother and I." "Keep my promises." She said it with such certainty that Vraxt believed her completely. This human had walked into a disaster zone alone, carrying hope in her pack and determination in her eyes. She had shared her food, valued their skills, told them her pain, and promised them safety. "On Earth," she said, "you do not leave anyone behind." Vraxt was starting to understand what that meant. The water was black as void. Carrie stood at the edge of the flooded tunnel, her diving equipment already secured, and looked back at the 4 dragons huddled behind her. They looked terrified, which was reasonable. She was about to ask them to trust her with their lives in the most literal way possible. "Remember what we practiced," she said calmly. "Hold your breath when I signal. Keep your eyes closed if it helps. I will pull you through. The tunnel is about 40 meters long, should take maybe 90 seconds per dragon. You can hold your breath that long, right?" They all nodded, though Rill looked like she might be sick. "Who goes first?" Carries asked, though she already knew the answer. "I will," Taven said. His voice only shook a little. "I am strongest. If something goes wrong, better to lose me than the others." "Nothing is going wrong." Carries walked over and fitted the harness around his chest and under his wings. "But you are brave to volunteer. That takes guts." She checked every strap twice, tested the tether 3 times, and made sure the emergency oxygen supply was accessible. Then she put on her own gear, the rebreather settling comfortably against her face from years of use. "Ready." Taven nodded. His scales had gone pale with fear. Carries took his clawed hand in hers. "Look at me, not the water, me. You are not doing this alone. We are doing this together. Understand?" "Together," he repeated. "Good, deep breath on 3. 1, 2, 3. They plunged into the darkness. The cold hit like a physical blow. Carries felt Taven tense in her grip, his dense body sinking immediately just like she expected. She activated the small propulsion unit on her belt and began pulling them forward through the flooded passage. Her headlamp cut through the murky water, illuminating broken supports and floating debris. She navigated around them carefully, keeping Taven close. His eyes were squeezed shut, his hand gripping her so hard it hurt. She squeezed back, steady and reassuring. 30 meters, 60 seconds. A support beam had fallen across their path. Carries adjusted course, pulling them under it. Taven's wing caught on something, and he jerked in panic. She immediately pulled him free and kept moving. No time to stop. No time to think about what could go wrong. 40 meters, 80 seconds. Light appeared ahead, not her lamp, but actual light, the air pocket, safety. She kicked harder, pulling them both toward it, and then they broke the surface. Taven gasped, coughing and shaking. Carries helped him climb onto the rocky ledge that bordered the water and removed his harness. "You did it," she said, her own breathing heavy. "You made it through." "I thought I was going to drown." "But you did not. You trusted me and you made it. Now rest here while I get the others." She did not wait for a response. There was no time. The longer the others waited, the more frightened they would become. She dove back into the water and swam back through the tunnel alone. Solace went next. He kept his eyes open the whole time, watching everything with that analytical mind of his. When they surfaced, he immediately asked questions about the structural integrity of the tunnel and whether the water levels were rising. Carries answered while she removed his harness, then dove again. Rill was tiny, light enough that pulling her through was almost easy, but she panicked halfway, thrashing in the water. Carries had to wrap both arms around her and hold her still while continuing forward. When they surfaced, Rill was sobbing and shaking. "You are safe," Carries said firmly. "You are safe now. Breathe with me. In, out, in, out." Rill clung to her, and Carries held the small dragon until the shaking stopped. Then she passed Rill to Solace and prepared for the final run. Vraxt was waiting in the darkness when she returned. He looked older than 16 somehow, like the weight of what they were doing had aged him. "Is everyone okay?" he asked as she fitted his harness. "Everyone is fine. You are the last one, then we go home." "Carries, thank you for all of this." She paused in checking his straps and met his eyes. "Thank me when we are all on my ship and out of here. Ready." "Ready." They descended together. The tunnel felt longer this time. Carries was tired from 3 round trips and her muscles burned from the exertion. But she pushed forward, pulling Vrax through the dark water with steady determination. She had done. Harder dives. She had saved people from worse situations. This was just another rescue, just another person depending on her. Except it was not. Not really. Somewhere along the way, these 4 dragons had become more than a job. They had become her responsibility in a way that went beyond contracts and payment. They were almost through when disaster struck. The tunnel shuddered. Vrax jerked in alarm and Carries felt rather than heard the groan of stressed metal. One of the supports was failing. She kicked harder, racing toward the light ahead, but she knew they were not going to make it in time. The support gave way with a sound like thunder. Rock and metal crashed down behind them, creating a surge of water that slammed into them like a fist. Carries lost her grip on Vraxt, and they tumbled separately through the churning water. She could not see him, could not find him in the chaos. Her headlamp spun wildly, showing nothing but debris and darkness. Panic tried to claw its way up her throat, but she shoved it down. No time for panic. Find Vraxt. Get him to safety. There, a flash of scales in the murky water. She grabbed his harness and pulled with everything she had left. The tunnel was collapsing behind them, but ahead the light still beckoned. Just a few more meters, just a little further. They burst through the surface together, gasping and coughing. Hands reached down and pulled them both onto the ledge. Solace and Taven dragged Vrax to safety while Rill threw her small arms around Carrie's. Behind them, the tunnel collapsed completely. Water surged and settled. The way back was gone forever. But everyone was safe. All 4 dragons were accounted for. Carrie's lay on the cold stone, her body screaming with exhaustion, and felt someone checking her for injuries. Vrax, probably, or Solace. It did not matter. They were all here. They had all made it. "Come on," she said when she could breathe again. "My ship is just through that passage. Let us go home." The ship was small but clean. Carrie's called it the Wayward Star, though Vrax thought it looked more like a modified cargo hauler than anything fancy. There were sleeping quarters barely big enough for one human, a cramped cockpit, a storage bay that doubled as living space, and a tiny medical station. It was the most beautiful thing Vrax had ever seen. Carrie's got them settled immediately. Emergency blankets for everyone, hot drinks brewing in the small galley medical scanner checking each dragon for injuries. She worked with practiced efficiency, treating hypothermia and minor wounds while simultaneously plotting their course out of the asteroid field. "We will reach the nearest consortium station in 3 weeks, she said, wrapping a heated blanket around Rill. "Long enough for you all to recover. I will contact your families when we are in communication range." "What about you?" Solace asked. "Who pays you for this rescue?" Carrie's paused for just a second too long. Vrax's mother paid a deposit. The rest does not matter. But it did matter. Vrax saw the way her eyes flickered to the datapad showing ship expenses. He had seen enough mining operation budgets to recognize financial stress when he saw it. "You are operating at a loss," Solace said flatly. "That is my business. You said you came for 1 dragon. My mother could not have paid enough for 4. Carrie's turned away and started checking medical supplies. "Like I said, on Earth you do not leave anyone behind. The money will work itself out." She did not want to talk about it anymore, so they let it drop. But Vrax filed the information away. This human had bankrupted herself to save them. That was worth remembering. The first few days on the ship were strange. The dragons were used to cramped mining barracks and constant work schedules. But Carrie's ran the Wayward Star differently. She created routines, yes, but comfortable ones. Meals at regular intervals, time for rest and recovery, even entertainment. She taught them Earth games, card games that made no sense until suddenly they did. Word puzzles that Solace loved. Simple drawing exercises that Rill excelled at. She told them stories about Earth, about oceans and forests and cities that stretched to the horizon. "Is Earth really as dangerous as they say?" Taven asked one evening. They were all gathered in the storage bay, which Carrie's had converted into a common room with blankets and cushions from somewhere. "Depends on where you go. The Deathworld reputation is earned mostly from our wildlife. We have predators that can kill you in seconds, weather patterns that can destroy cities, gravity that crushes most species." "Why do humans stay there then?" Carrie smiled. "Because it is home, humans are adaptable, we survive anywhere, but we love hardest the places that shaped us. Earth made us tough, yes, but it also made us appreciate safety when we have it, made us protective of those who cannot protect themselves." "Is that why you rescue people?" Rill asked. "Part of it, also because I know what it is like to lose someone when help does not come. I know what it is like to be left behind." She looked at each of them. "Nobody should feel that way. Nobody." Vrax understood then. Carrie's was not just rescuing bodies. She was rescuing herself over and over, trying to fix what had broken in her when her parents died. Every person she saved was a piece of her own heart being put back together. The weeks passed in strange comfort. They healed physically and started to heal emotionally. But Vrax noticed things changing, small things at first. The way Rill followed Carrie's everywhere, learning her routines. The way Taven asked her advice on things he used to figure out himself. The way Solace discussed ship maintenance with her like an equal. The way Vraxt felt safer with this human stranger than he had ever felt with his own mining supervisors. They were bonding to her, pack bonding the way humans supposedly did with everything. Except dragons did not pack bond outside their nest. It was not how their species worked. Or it was not supposed to be. Carries, Vraxt found her in the cockpit one night, staring at stars through the viewport. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Why did your parents become miners if they knew it was dangerous?" She was quiet for a long moment. Because they were good at it. Because they wanted to build something for their family. Because sometimes the dangerous choice is still the right choice if it means the people you love have better lives. "Do you think they would be proud of you?" "I hope so. I like to think they would understand why I do this." She glanced at him. "Why do you ask?" "Because my mother sold everything to hire you. She gave up her nest stone, which means she has nothing left of her own mother now, and I am trying to understand if that was worth it, if I was worth it." Carries turned to face him fully. "Listen to me. Your mother did not lose something when she sold that stone. She invested it. She invested it in your future, in your life. That is what parents do. They give everything they have to make sure their children survive. But now she has nothing. She has you alive. That is not nothing, that is everything." Vraxt felt something tight in his chest loosen. "I want to help you when we reach the station. You are in debt because of us. That is not your responsibility. You made us your responsibility. That goes both ways." Carries smiled, sad and fond at the same time. "You are a good kid, Vraxt. Your mother raised you right." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars stream past. Behind them in the storage bay, Solace was teaching real basic engineering. Taven was practicing his reading with books from Carrie's small library. They were all growing stronger, healthier, safer. But a transmission came through 2 days before they reached the station. Official consortium channels. Carrie's face went pale as she read it. "What is wrong?" Vraxt asked. She handed him the datapad. The message was clear enough. The consortium was accusing Carries of theft. The dragons had contracts. They were company property until those contracts were fulfilled. By removing them from the mine without authorization, Carries had committed corporate theft. They were waiting for her at the station, not to thank her for saving lives, but to arrest her and send the dragons back to the mines. Back to the darkness, back to the danger, back to being acceptable losses. "No," Vrax said, "we are not going back. There has to be another way." Carries looked at him with tired eyes. "I am open to suggestions." The consortium station loomed ahead like a threat made solid. Carries docked the wayward star with steady hands despite the tension vibrating through every muscle. Security was waiting at the airlock. She could see them through the viewport, armed and official and utterly unsympathetic. "Stay behind me," she told the dragons. "Let me do the talking." "They are going to arrest you," Solace said quietly. "Probably, but they need to process the arrest legally, which means station holding until a hearing. That gives us time to figure something out." She did not sound convinced. The airlock opened, and 3 security officers stepped aboard immediately. The lead officer, a Kellian with blue skin and too many eyes, held up a datapad displaying official warrants. "Carries Wade, you are under arrest for corporate theft, breach of salvage protocols, and unauthorized removal of contracted workers. The dragon miners are to be returned to consortium custody immediately." "Those dragon miners have names," Carries said coldly. "And they almost died in that mine, the consortium abandoned them. The situation was deemed an acceptable operational loss. Your interference has disrupted legitimate business operations." "My interference saved 4 lives. 4 contracted workers who will now be returned to fulfill their obligations." Vraxt felt something snap inside him. They had been free for 3 weeks. They had learned what safety felt like, what being valued felt like. They had started to heal. And now these officials wanted to send them back into the darkness like nothing had changed. No, he was done being an acceptable loss. "Invoke Guardian Law," Vrax said loudly. Everyone turned to stare at him. The security officer looked confused. "What?" "Guardian Law, it is ancient dragon legislation written into our planetary constitution. It supersedes corporate contracts." Vrax stepped forward, his heart's pounding but his voice steady. "I invoke Guardian Law and claim Carries Wade as my chosen nest guardian." Solace caught on immediately. "I also invoke Guardian Law. I claim Carries Wade as my guardian." "Same," Taven said, moving to stand beside them. "Carries Wade is my chosen guardian." Rill was crying, but she said it anyway. "My guardian, I choose Carries." The security officer looked between them in disbelief. "You cannot just claim a human as your guardian. Your families have legal claim. Guardian Law allows any dragon to choose their nest guardian when their birth nest has failed to protect them. The consortium abandoned us in a collapsed mine. Our birth nests could not afford to buy out our contracts. That constitutes failure of protection. We are legally permitted to choose a new guardian, and we choose Carries Wade." Carries looked shocked. "Vrax, you cannot do this. Guardian Law means you give up your birth families. You would be choosing me over your own nests." "No," Solace said. "In dragon culture, you can have a birth nest and a chosen nest. They are not mutually exclusive. We are not abandoning our families. We are expanding them." The security officer was scanning through legal databases frantically. "This is highly irregular." "But is it legal?" Vrax demanded. There was a long silence. Then the officer's shoulders slumped. "If the Guardian accepts the claim, yes, it supersedes corporate contracts, but the human would need to accept formally." Everyone turned to Carries. She looked at the 4 dragons standing before her, offering themselves as her family, choosing. Her over freedom, tears were streaming down her face. "You do not have to do this," she whispered. "I will fight the consortium in court. I will find another way." "We want to do this," Vrax said. "You risked everything for us. You gave us safety when no one else would. You are already our guardian in every way that matters. We are just making it legal." "Carries," Rill said softly, "please do not make us go back." Carries wiped her eyes and straightened. When she spoke, her voice was firm. "I accept. I claim these 4 dragons as my chosen nest. I will protect them, provide for them, and honor their trust in me. By human tradition and dragon law, they are mine and I am theirs." The security officer made a disgusted noise, but tapped commands into his datapad. "Fine. The Guardian claim is registered. The dragons are released from their consortium contracts effective immediately. Carries Wade, you are no longer under arrest for theft since the dragons are now legally your dependents and you had parental authority to remove them from danger." He glared at all of them. "The consortium will not forget this." "I am counting on them remembering," Carries said. "Every corporation should know that some people will not accept their acceptable losses." The security team left in angry silence. The moment they were gone, Rill threw herself at Carries and the human caught her easily. Taven and Solace moved in for a group embrace. Vrax hung back for a moment, overwhelmed by what they had just done. Carries reached out a hand to him. "You too, come here." He stepped into the embrace and felt her arms go around all of them. They stood like that in the airlock of the Wayward Star, a family that had chosen itself against every odd and expectation. "What happens now?" Solace asked. "Now," Carries pulled back to look at them. "Now I need to figure out how to afford feeding 4 growing dragons, and I need to contact your birth families to explain what happened. And I need to find us somewhere to live because this ship is way too small for all of us long-term." "We will help," Vrax said. "We are not children who need to be carried anymore. We can work. We can contribute." "You are absolutely children who need to be carried sometimes," Carries said firmly. "That is what guardians do. But yes, when you are ready, when you have healed fully, we will figure out the rest together. As a family." A family, Vrax had a birth nest he loved, but now he had a chosen nest too, built from rescue and trust and shared danger. A nest that included a human who walked into darkness without hesitation, and a group of dragons who decided that being together mattered more than following rules. The consortium station stretched around them, full of regulations and corporate power. But standing in that airlock, surrounded by the people he had chosen and who had chosen him back, Vraxt felt safer than he had ever felt in his life. They had found each other in the dark mine, and now they would face everything else together in the light. 6 months had changed everything. The habitat hung in stable orbit around a small moon, far from consortium space and corporate oversight. It had been a derelict mining station once, abandoned decades ago when the resources dried up. Carries bought it for practically nothing and spent 3 months making it livable with help from 4 determined young dragons. Now it was home. Vrax stood in what they called the common room and watched his family move through their evening routines. Solace sat at the engineering workstation, analyzing schematics for a rescue harness design he was developing. Taven practiced flight maneuvers in the converted cargo bay that doubled as an exercise space. Rill sprawled on cushions with her schoolwork, learning advanced mathematics from a correspondence course. Carries worked at her desk, planning her next rescue operation. She had not stopped saving people. If anything, having a family had made her more determined. "Dinner in 10 minutes, she called without looking up. "Whoever sets the table gets first choice of dessert." 3 dragons scrambled for the kitchen. Vraxt smiled and followed at a more sedate pace. His nest mother had visited twice now. The first time had been difficult, both of them unsure how to navigate the change. But his mother had hugged Carries and thanked her in broken standard, and Carries had cried and promised to take care of him. The second visit had been easier, more comfortable. His mother brought gifts and stories from home, and she stayed for a week learning about their new life. She approved. That mattered more than Vraxt expected. The other dragons' families had similar reactions. Relief mostly that their children were safe and thriving. Some sadness at the distance, but also pride in what their younglings had chosen. Because they were thriving, all of them. Solace was enrolled in advanced engineering courses and already getting offers from universities. Taven had discovered a love of piloting and was working toward his commercial flight certification. Rill was excelling at every subject they put in front of her, already talking about becoming a rescue specialist like Carries. Vraxt himself had found purpose in rescue coordination. He worked with Carries on mission planning, using his mining experience to assess dangerous situations. They made a good team. But the family was growing beyond just the 5 of them. A young dragon named Frost had shown up 3 weeks ago, referred by one of the families they had helped. She had nowhere else to go after her nest mother died. Carries had taken her in without question, expanding their quarters and adjusting schedules. Then came Copper and Sky, siblings who had escaped a labor contract similar to what the original 4 had faced. They heard about Carries and found their way to the habitat. Now there were 7 dragons, and 1 human living in organized chaos. "I need more beds," Carries muttered at dinner, "and probably a bigger ship for supply runs." "We could convert the lower storage bay into additional quarters," Solace suggested. "I have been running the calculations. It is structurally sound." "That would take money we do not have yet." "Actually," Vrax said carefully, "we do. I have been managing the rescue operation finances while you were out last week. 3 of the families we helped made donations, and the Galactic Rescue Cooperative wants to offer you a contract for consultant work." Carrie stared at him. "You have been managing the finances." "Someone had to. You are very good at saving people and very bad at charging them appropriately." He slid a datapad across the table. "I created a sliding payment scale based on family means. Those who can afford it pay more, those who cannot pay less or nothing. But enough people can afford it that we are actually operating in the black now." She looked at the numbers in disbelief. "This is real." "I double-checked everything," Solace confirmed. "Vraxt is right. We are financially stable for the first time since he started tracking." Carries put her face in her hands. When she looked up, she was laughing and crying at the same time. You learned accounting to save my rescue operation. You learned diving to save us, Vrax said simply. This is what families do. Rill tugged on Carrie's sleeve. Does this mean we can get the good synthesizer food, the kind that does not taste like recycled protein? Yes, troublemaker, we can upgrade the food supplies. The table erupted in cheers. After dinner, they gathered in the common room like they did most evenings. Carries taught them a new Earth game involving strategy and careful planning. Frost struggled with the rules, but Copper helped her patiently. Sky fell asleep halfway through, exhausted from flight practice. This was their life now, chaotic, busy, full of learning and growing and supporting each other. They were not a traditional family by any species' standards, but they worked. Later, when the younger dragons had gone to bed, Vrax found Carries on the observation deck. She stood at the viewport, looking at stars like she always did when she was thinking hard. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For walking into that mine, for refusing to leave us, for becoming our guardian even when it cost you everything." Carries smiled. "You know what is funny? I went into that mine to save 4 dragons. I was going to bring you back to your families and move on to the next rescue. That was the plan." "What changed?" "You did, all of you. Somewhere between the dark tunnels and the flooded passage, you stopped being a job and became my family. I did not plan that, did not expect it, but I cannot imagine my life without you now." "Neither can we, without you, I mean." They stood together watching the stars, guardian and child, human and dragon, family by choice rather than blood. More dragons would come. Carries knew it, Vrax knew it. Young ones who needed safety, who needed someone to walk into the darkness for them. And they would take them in because that was what their family did. The mine had been dark and terrible. It had been the worst experience of Vrax's life, but it had also been the beginning of something beautiful. 4 dragons had waited in the dark. A human had come for them, and she had stayed forever, not because she had to, but because they had all chosen each other. In the end, that was what made a family, not biology or species or circumstance, just the decision to stay, to care, to protect each other no matter what came next. And for Carries and her ever-growing nest of dragons, that would always be enough.